Good evening, afternoon, night, morning, whenever you find a way to watch or listen to this. And little do you know, yes, there's a Tulsa shirt up here, but I am just off of work, so I still have my OCP bottoms on. And I mean, I'm just ready to record a late day at work. But, talking about college football, especially Army football, energizes me and pushes me through. I'm joined by an old friend of the podcast, Cuthbert of SSN Army, and I'm just gonna let him take the mic, because this is a podcast that is a couple weeks in the making, or a week and a half in the making after Army's win over Air Force. So Cuthbert, what's on how's everything going, and what's on your mind with our hot topic of today?
First of all, thank you so much for having me back. Love the hardware pod. Love everything that you do, Omar. And I also appreciate you serving as a sounding board or a therapist for me a little bit here because I've got some big picture ideas that I needed desperately to talk to somebody about. So, to anybody listening who is an Army fan, you already know this. To everybody else, we'll get you caught up. After a half good, half shaky 2-1 start, Army went on a 5-game losing streak. We knew that it was going to be a murderer's row relative to Army, but after that loss to UMass, we had people really in the fan base really ready to jump ship, looking in particular to make coaching staff changes. And there's a lot of talk about the new offensive scheme, but there was in particular, from what I was seeing, at least on social media, Facebook, Twitter, a lot of talk about Nate Woody specifically, who's the defensive coordinator for Army. I've made it clear before in the past, I'm very hot and cold with Nate. By and large, I'm a fan, but there have been some shakier moments. Well, you rewind to November 4th, when Army gives an absolute drubbing to Air Force 23-3, and it's done on the backs of an absolutely suffocating defense, where Army just has short field after short field after short field because of turnovers on downs. The defense came to play that day, and we knocked off our first ranked team in what was like 51 years. It was our Air Force again to the day. It was the last time we beat a ranked team. Huge win. It was a big upset. We were 18 points underdogs. Now we hold our CIC destiny in our hands. All is right with the world. And it got me thinking. Nate Woody is a triple option defensive specialist. So is it possible that his defensive schemes are middling, mediocre, maybe slightly above average against college football teams at large, but in fact overproduce against the two teams that matter the most to us, Air Force and Navy? So I began to wonder, would it be possible for a coordinator to keep their job, keep the heat off themselves, however you want to put it, just by overproducing in CIC games? And I pounded the pavement, and I put some polls on Facebook in 2 different groups that I'm in. I reached out personally to about a dozen who's who of the Army Twitterverse to get people's opinions on this. And I got some really, really interesting results. And I'll just put this out there, Omar, and then I'm going to throw it back to you. What I said was, would Army fans rather get 5 to 7 wins a year, but we win the Commander-in-Chief's trophy 2 out of every 3? Or would you rather take 8 to 10 wins a year, but we only win the CIC once every 5 years? And over 80% of people who responded to polls or who I messaged directly said that they would rather be a 5 or 6 win team and win the CIC 2 out of every 3 years, that we would forego bowl games. We wouldn't mind being a middle of the pack team, because that is how important the Air Force and the Navy games are. And I just thought it was a very, very interesting topic to discuss when you have fans calling for coordinators' heads. And if those coordinators can produce results in seemingly the only 2 games that our fans care about, It's just a very, very interesting dynamic. So I just want to talk to you about it and see what your thoughts were.
Yeah, so I think it's interesting, and I think this whole I'd hate to make this a cop out. Well, first off, I'm gonna say this before I guess no, I'm gonna say before I make this a cop out about the conference. I think it all comes down to joining a conference or not, right? But before this, I want to say that I'm just glad as an Army fan that winning the CIC is the expectation now, where it's not like, oh, maybe we'll get lucky against a really good Air Force team, in the early to mid 2000s, right? Because that's when I kind of grew up as an Army fan. um, I'm glad that the expectation is CIC or bust now, and not like, hey, maybe we'll get lucky. So I just want to say that, and those games are the most important games of the season. That being said, I think everything you've mentioned, the feel, the fan base brings us back. I think history's repeating itself. I think we're in kind of like the Bob Sutton conundrum 2.0, where I think so. Bob Sutton pretty much saved his job his first few years as coach because if you look at his records, I'm gonna walk through his records after replacing the great Jim Young, college football Hall of Famer, I should say. So 1991, 4-7, right? Had the loss against Navy. That's his freebie, right? His freebie was his first Army Navy game. Lost to a Navy team. That was 0-10, mind you, but lost that one. But 92 had his first win against Navy, but went 5-6. 93, second straight win against Navy, 6-5. 94, 4-7 win against Navy, right? And then 95 again, he was kind of on the hot seat, but again, a 99-yard drive by Ronnie Makeda and that offense saved his job essentially 5-5-1, right? Now let's look at the schedules for these years. Where 1995 in particular, Army had Lehigh, Colgate, and Bucknell. So if we're looking at the record against FBS competition, we have 2-5-1. So you look at the schedule, the only wins that Army fans can really get excited about was maybe, well, they beat Boston College that year, so maybe it's not a great example. But Boston College and Rice are your two Division 1A in the 1990s and FBS wins, where it's like I I don't know if you want to cut in, Cuthbert. But
No, no, no. I mean, like, look, beating Boston College is fantastic. Beating
oh yeah,
Rice
yeah.
is good, but it's like, but you're telling me you're playing, who was it? Bucknell, Colgate, and Lehigh?
It was three teams. So that's the thing. Like people forget that even in the Jim Young years, right? The second renaissance of Army football since since World War II. I mean, Army made the Sun Bowl playing, I think, four FCS teams or Division One AA, if we want to throw it back. Which I got
Old school.
But yeah, we want to throw it old school. So the thing is like I guess the point I'm trying to make with this ramble, as I want to verify and make sure it was four teams, which nothing holding nothing back against the '88 team. That was a great team, took Alabama to the wire. But one, two, three, yeah, four FCS teams or Division One AA teams on the way to the Sun Bowl. That being said, it's like I think Army fans are doing two things. I think they're stuck in the 1960s and 40s, especially the 60s. I guess the latest you can cut this off is the 60s when we're playing Penn State, playing Syracuse, playing Eastern Powers like Pitt and everything, and we're getting our money's worth out of our independent schedule. And I think they're also doing two things and forgetting our history at the same time, where honestly, the independent schedules have not been much to write home to mother about since honestly the 1970s, where we're forgetting that these teams really there weren't many other wins to hang your hat off. Like the same thing with this team. It's like if this year, I think you think about a year like yeah, I guess this year 2022, right? We had one of the weakest resumes in the country. I'm pretty sure all the teams we beat were below the S&P, I'd say like 90s with Bill Connolly, where it's like, what wins can we hang our hat off of? UConn was a good win, but I mean that's a team that a little bit of them being an Eastern rival kind of helped like the luster with that win. But we have two FCS wins. Um, Trying to think who else we beat. We beat UMass, right? So that's four wins, and I think I'm missing a couple of other wins in 2022. I pretty much erased it, but like that's kind of the point I'm making, where it's like I can't really mark a signature win aside from the Navy win because our independent schedules aren't great in my opinion. So I think that's just a long roundabout way to bring on my conference point.
No, well, you make a excuse me, you make a really, really good point bringing up 2022. We finished 2022 at 6-6, and we did it with Money Moretsky sinking the double OT field goal to beat Navy. And I'll tell you what, I was always a fan of Brent Davis, our former OC. I did not disagree with the decision to let him go, but after that game when we beat Navy, I thought he was coming back for another year. I thought we were going to have a Coach Ken situation. I mean, in my opinion, Coach Ken should still be at Navy. But I'll tell you right now, if Navy doesn't upset Army in 2021, he would have been gotten fired then. They waited until 2022 to can him because he lost to Army. I mean, it tells you how important these games are. But I know that at the end of 2022, at 6-6 with a win over Navy, I was feeling like it's glass half full. Now, I don't know if we're going to beat Coastal this week, but if we can beat Navy, if we can win the CIC in the first year of a new offense, when we're playing it with players who are not recruited for this offense, who are not as experienced in this offense, I'm feeling like the world is our oyster. I'm ready to go into the American and take that league by storm. I'm looking on social media right now, and I'm looking at what Army fans are saying. And even after the Holy Cross win, there's no boo-hoo about Nate Woody and the DC after the Holy Cross win. All credit to Holy Cross. They're like an old school Army team. They're like a working class, gut it out, lower your shoulder team. Like, I got a lot of respect for those guys. That was a great game. And I don't feel bad that it was so close. I wish we'd done better, obviously, but there's a lot of people who are putting a lot of hate on our new scheme. And like you and I were texting back and forth against Holy Cross, we went under center, whatever, a half a dozen times. I loved to see that. I know you love to see it, but I don't think we need to be going back to that. I mean, bring it in a little bit here, a little bit there. People are like, oh, well, we went under center. It worked so well. Of course it worked well. Nobody thought we were going to do it. So of course it's going to work well. But when we were going under center, for 70 rushes a game with Brent Davis, Monken could see the writing on the wall that 2022, it was only downhill from there. And he made the right decision. So I'm not ready to jump ship on this offense yet. And, the CIC is so important that if Nate Woody can be an integral part in us getting that trophy more, bring it on. Bring it on. And when we go to the American, look, I don't know how long it's going to be until we win the American, if we ever win the American. But I look at that league and I go, we got to be better than at least half these schools. Like, we got to be able to beat a bunch of these schools. Look, Tulane's really, really good. Memphis. But it's like, I don't know. I don't want to name names, but I'm looking at the American going, what am I missing here? We're going to do well in this league.
Yeah, see, I agree, and that's the thing. I think for me is like you mentioned Coastal. I know you led in with mentioning Coastal, with your point, and I think the thing is like there's not really much tradition. It's like this matchup and home series with Coastal. It's great. Grayson McCall is hurt, unfortunately, but there isn't as
That's good
much
news
kind
for
of.
us.
Yeah, I know it's good news, but I heard they're still rolling. They look good lately, unfortunately. Hopefully that New York cold gets to them. That's what I'm depending on. That they're not ready for
Cold and
this New
wet.
York November weather. Yeah, cold and wet.
You're
But
wearing a
it's like,
Myrtle Beach shirt. Get out of here with this. You
oh,
want to beat Coastal. Get out of here with the Myrtle Beach Bowl. Come on.
it was
I'll
cold
see
actually.
right through you.
It was cold that day. I went to that bowl game after work. Like, yeah, like I was wearing a hoodie and I'm like, I did not expect this weather. Like, I'm not prepared for this. But yeah, I mean, that being said, it's like, yes, Coastal's a good team, but it's like we don't have tradition with them, right? We don't have tradition. This is just a random home and home against a group of five team that wants to sell tickets because Fort Gordon is 3 hours away and Fort Bragg's a few hours away as well. That's really all it boils down to. Coastal could we're really flipping a coin with a lot of these series. On the other hand, the fact, I guess, being in a conference, say like next year, I know I brought up Memphis. Like if next year we kick down the door and we beat Memphis in our first year in the American, like what a statement that would be. Or even beating Tulane in our first year in the American, where it's like Memphis has been king or Duke or Prince of the American for years, for almost since Paxton Lynch was there, right? So there's that narrative around it, right? Just being in a conference, like being the new kids on the block and knocking off the Kings. Same thing with Tulane. So like that's kind of how I feel with like these games. Where it's like there's like not much to get for, and I did. It's like I guess to illustrate my point with the 2022 season, which like it was a good season, but like the other two wins aside, the other two wins I didn't name were Louisiana. It was Louisiana Monroe. I mean, which no disrespect to them, but I mean, it's not a program that I guess Army fans think of immediately when they mention the national schedule argument. So that's kind of I don't know if I'm rambling and just going in a different direction, but that's kind of how I'm feeling about the importance of the service academy. So I feel like fans back in the 80s and 90s were thinking the same thing, where it's like we're beating two Division 1A teams a year, and they're not great teams, but hey, we're beating Navy every year. So I mean that's this is like my thought.
Well, it's really interesting. You mean almost to a man or to a woman or to whoever, the folks that I spoke to said, I said, what do you want? Are you okay with 5 to 7 wins a year and that's it? So, like, at least half the time, maybe more. We're not even making bowl games, but we're getting the CIC a bunch. Or do you want to be like, yeah, we're getting double digit wins, like with regularity, but we're only getting the CIC once every 5 years? To a man, everybody's like, I want all of it. I want 10 wins. I want the CIC. I want the AAC championship. And it's not to say that it's necessarily mutually exclusive, but I thought in that Air Force game, we really saw a very unique situation where, what is it that makes the service academies so dynamic? And Air Force has been able to sustain it. I would say, generally speaking, a little bit more. Army, to a little bit of a lesser extent, but has caught lightning in a bottle since about 2016. Navy, unfortunately, they're in a little bit of a nadir at the moment, but they had a great decade from whatever, like '05 to 15. And a lot of that is because of the triple option, right? And it's whether it's the flex bone or it's the wishbone or it's the veer, or, I don't know enough to know the differences, but we're just going to call it the triple option as an overarching term. If you can defend that, which a lot of their competitors can't, then you get that advantage. And so it's like, yeah, we're going to trade the fact that, we might lose to UMass 14-21, which is a winnable game, or in my opinion, we lost to Troy 19-0. I think that's our worst loss of the year because we were just completely flat and completely dead. We got 3 losses by 1 score. I feel like this is 2015 2.0. So, if we can flip those and we can get the CIC, it's like, guys, what more could you ask for as a fan? And I just think that's such an incredible position to be in, to be like, yeah, we got a guy. He bats a little over 500, generally speaking, but in the 2 games that really matter, we win 8 out of 10. Because somebody put it on Twitter. I don't know if it was Black Knight Nation or Brigade Review. Somebody, we're like 11-3 in our last 14 CIC games or something crazy like that. I don't know, something crazy.
Yeah, so I mean, on that point, yeah, like absolutely. I mean, like our priority definitely for sure is CIC, then bowl game, and then of course AAC, right? Where it's like, I mean, you look at Navy's years, I guess their best years in the American, like 2016 is kind of a heartbreaker, right? Because like they were arguably a game away, from the New Year's Six, but like we can debate, whether the committee would have picked them over Western Michigan. That's a topic for another. That's a revisionist thing for another podcast. You look at 2019, 10-2, beat Army, beat Air Force, right? Those years were made undoubtedly sweeter, not bittersweet, where it's like I think it's interesting with your point where it's like Navy went 7-6 in 2017. Zach Abey ran for I think 6 touchdowns and I think tied the record for rushing touchdowns in a bowl game. But like I don't think you ask an Navy fan, I don't think they'll remember that. All they'll remember is Bennett Mooring. Hope he's doing well. But all they'll remember is Bennett Mooring in the snow, right? So it's kind of like this. I feel like it'll be the same thing with us in the American, for sure. But I guess my point is like the stakes definitely will be higher for sure in the American. But like right now as an Army fan, I mean we're kind of in a. I mean it's interesting. It's an interesting spot, with these schedules where it's like the thing is it's like um, of course, we're looking forward to the service academy games, but like, there's not much. I guess how can I put it? I really want to use a food kind of analogy where it's like there's not much meat in the bread. Where it's like there's like it's like if you're eating a sandwich, right? And there's so much sauce like mustard, mayonnaise, and whatnot that you take a bite and the meat slips out, right? It's like we take those few bites and our schedule's kind of just bread and sauce, right? I mean, where it's like
It's
it
all
fills
sizzle,
you.
no steak.
Exactly. It fills you. Like it's food, it's substance. But I mean, I guess it's food and it's sustenance, but it's like it kind of like lacks that substance with you. Which an added thing too, since bowl games are my thing, I'm trying to do the Cornacchia Bowls branding. It's
I
kind of
love
a
that,
nice
by the way.
gag. Yeah, Kornacki time's coming soon for the NFL playoffs. So I mean, keep that in mind for in football night in America and at halftime of Sunday Night Football. But the thing is like with Army, it's like I really feel like there hasn't been we've played power conference teams, but it's like there really hasn't been, I guess, like a set goal at the end of the year when it comes to bowl games. In the American, it's much of the same thing too, where it's like, ESPN's gonna do their media conglomerate thing and be like, all right, this is gonna bring viewers. So San Jose State, you're playing in Alabama against Jacksonville State. I saw that projection. I'm like, that sucks for San Jose State fans. Like
Yeah,
2 days before
yeah.
Christmas. But like with us, it's like to the Americans the same degree, but it's like the American, like they have I think American teams that aren't gonna make the New Year's Six because the goal, I mean, the Americans been the front runner for the New Year's Six out of the five for years now. But there's a lot of good consolation prizes for a team the caliber of Army and Navy to strive for. Where it's like, if you don't make the New Year's Six, if you go 8-4 and beat Air Force and Navy, hey, you can play a Power Five team at Fenway Park. You can play a Power Five. You can play an ACC team at the Military Bowl. And it's like for Army, it's like we're at the whims of ESPN, right? And we still are to a degree at the American, but I think that also adds to it because I mean I'm excited about those two bowl destinations in the American. So I mean I think that's
No,
kind of a third
I'll
order.
tell you. I mean, I'm kind of right on the fence about this. About joining the American. I mean, ultimately, like I think it's our only option. We got to do it. So I'm behind it 100%. There are some aspects of it that I like more than others. I will say I'm getting really, really tired. And not that we go to that many bowl games, but I'm getting so tired of being like, well, you're either going to be in the Armed Forces Bowl or you're going to be in what's the other one, like the Military Bowl.
The
It's
first
like
responder bowl, yeah.
the first, right. It's like, can we do something? Like, give me, like, I hope, what I really hope, my real pipe dream is that one year when we like are not doing that well, we somehow get into the Bahamas Bowl. I want to go to the Bahamas. So, but like, I understand it's
In the
obviously the
famous
lowest
Toastery
bowl.
Bowl because it got
Right.
renamed the famous Toaster.
Well, it's going to be in Charlotte this year. I said they should have done it in Puerto Rico, but that,
I know,
you know,
I know.
there's a baseball stadium in Puerto Rico that can fit a football field and holds like 10,000 people. I'm like, guys, this is obviously the choice to make. But I'm actually really excited about new bowls and like bowl berth potential opening up for us. And I don't know. I am a glass half full Kool-Aid drinking fan. I don't think it's impossible that we win the American. Like, there's a reason why we're going into the American. It's because SMU, like, who's kind of ho hum to begin with, they're out. Cincy's out. UCF is out. Like, I'm not saying we're gonna just walk in there and win it next year, but I absolutely think that within, I would say, 8 years, we could win the American because you got to think, presuming we stay with this offense, the players who are getting recruited to it, they are in all likelihood going to be at the prep school next year, which means they're going to be freshmen in 25, which means they're really not going to be seeing playing time until 26 or 27 in all likelihood. So maybe not 8 years, maybe like 5 years. Like, I think we could absolutely be winning the AAC in like sometime between 26 and 29. I absolutely think we could do that.
I hope so, and I hope people, if I hope if we don't win it, people don't come to this. I hope they don't come to this prediction. But I mean, yeah, I definitely think it's winnable. Like Navy was honestly a freak injury away, or freak two injuries on the same play away from winning the American back in 2016, and that was their second year of the conference.
And I'll tell you what, if Navy, I'm convinced that I'm not saying we would have lost 2016, but Navy played in the AAC championship the week before the Army Navy game. And
Yeah,
that was the year that Ahmad Bradshaw and all those guys, that whole team broke the streak. And I really do and that was a close game. And not to take anything away from our boys, but if Navy comes into that on whatever 2 weeks rest or 3 weeks rest or whatever we had, and they don't have those injuries, I'm not sure the streak gets broken that year. And there's part of me that's like, that was the snowball. And then in 2017, when we win off the last second field goal in the snow that goes wide left, and it's like, those are like the little things in fate that needed to get the ball rolling for Army just to get to where we are now. And I feel like there's good stuff ahead of us. You know what I mean? And I'm on board with this new scheme. It ain't perfect, and we're not running it as well as we could. But you watch that UTSA game, you watch the first half of Syracuse. I'm like, there's good stuff here. There's good stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Like I'm on board with the offense too. I mean, the passing game needs a little bit of work, but I mean, Bryson Day was recruited for the old scheme. Like the
Right.
passing, yeah, it's like it that is. I won't say excusable, but I mean, like there's gonna be growing
Understandable.
pains. Yeah, there we go. There's gonna be growing pains. I'm gonna waffle. So I guess allow me to waffle. I think I might coin that as a new phrase on the for the podcast in the future. Allow me to waffle. But
Allow me to waffle.
so my thing too is like I'm gonna go back on my like independent versus American soapbox where it's like the ironic thing is the 2018 team was arguably the best team since Pete Dawkins was at the academy. But people remember a loss more than any win we had that year. Like, and I think that's I think when it comes down to the whole independent I guess in American, I guess like the American skeptics, it's like I want American conference, I guess joining skeptics, like people skeptical about us joining the conference. I want them to name one win that was a signature win because I can. I mean I was there, I witnessed most of those games, but it's like, you know, our best win was, I mean, there's a really good Buffalo team that went 10-4. But aside from that, like, a lot of the wins, weren't, really great, memorable wins. We just kind of we set up, beat who was in front of us, and that was that, and who was in front of us, it was an okay schedule, but I mean, it's not like as memorable, and I feel like, the lesser of two evils, like scheduling freedom is already kind of going to crap, for us, but it's like we might as well have a chance to play for the playoff, right? And for me, a bowl guy, you know, let's play Boston College at Fenway. Let's do cool, let's put ourselves in position to do cool stuff like that. So I'm done waffling. The hotel waffle makers flipped back over and sprayed off, so waffling's done.
Well, I mean, that's really about it. That's really, I mean, look, if you want me to, I can go second and third level and start talking about the seniors who aren't going to be here next year and what that means towards our offensive scheme and things like that. But it's getting late. You just got home from work. And I'm ready to pull the ripcord if you are. You're
I am
muted.
too, yeah. Yeah. Something I wanted to mention as well is like we have more. I talked to a Blue and Gold report, and something that I brought up, and I may sound silly saying this, like I feel like if there even is a reason to coin such a term, I feel like the American is a group of five Ivy League, and like maybe I'm watering down the term Ivy League a lot because there's Tulsa, Tulane,
Eh,
Navy, us, Rice. That's like
Rice.
that's three private schools and two service academies. I mean, maybe I'm putting too much emphasis on Tulsa, but it's like academic peers are always great. Like there's a reason that you look at our schedules, and in recent years, like the most frequent teams on our schedule are Wake Forest and Duke because those are teams that we feel like we can compete with and we share a lot in common with. So I mean, I
Yeah, I
I think
mean,
there's a
I think you're absolutely right that there is an interest in not exclusively scheduling, but ensuring the scheduling of peer institutions. I mean, we played Rice what like 2-3 times in the between 2016 and 2019. I don't know exactly, but I know we played them multiple times. In fact, I went to the game at Mikey when we beat Rice. And I always say, like, if I could wave a magic wand and make any conference I wanted to, I'd make one and call it something like the Scholastic, and it'd be nothing but like Stanford, Cal, Northwestern, Notre Dame, us, Duke. You know what I mean? Like just the top level. And I know that there is interest at the academy to make sure that we are scheduling those peer institutions. And maybe calling it the G5 Ivy is like a little bit of a stretch, but it's not that far of a stretch. I mean, you're onto something there. I never saw it, but you're onto something.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because I feel like the term Harvard is being overused, Harvard of blank, because I know UTEP is, I don't know if it's a joke down here, but people call it the Harvard of the Borderlands, which is like,
Or
I
the
heard an
Harvard of West
announcement.
Texas.
Yeah, the Harvard of the Borderlands, and like I heard like there's someone like someone recorded a clip from last night's game against UC Santa Barbara that was on CBS Sports Network, and the announcer it was like the Harvard of the Borderlands goes up by 12, and I'm like, man, either this guy is like really in tune with the memes, or like he like really thinks that.
How, I mean, what's the closest school to UTEP? It's like if you're the only university for like 500 miles, then technically you are like the Harvard of such and such, you know?
Well, NMSU is an hour away, so maybe it's a jab at
Oh, okay.
that Cal College, because like they do have a strong agriculture program, so I guess they still are Cal College. I'm a neutral party, as you can see. Like I have a UTEP jersey, and I have this. I went to New Mexico State's Quick Lane Bowl parade, so I'm a neutral party, by way of being stationed down here. So I just watch the trash talk happen. So that's all I'll say about that. Maybe I'll annoy some UTEP fans, maybe I'll annoy some Aggie fans, but all I'll say is this: is like there's some good quarterback play down here. That's where I'll leave it at.
It's good stuff. It's good stuff. Listen, Omar, I just want to say thanks again, man. I love coming on the Hardware Pod, and I love getting to chew the fat with you, man.
Yeah, likewise, Cuthbert. And I hope that Army fans. I'm not on Army fans like crap list, because that's really not a fun list to be on, honestly. They Army fans are relentless. So hopefully I'm not on their crap list after stating my opinions, or waffling a bit. So I hope those waffles taste good, in short. But until next time, Cuthbert, thanks for joining. I appreciate it. This was a fun conversation, got me energized, and even more honestly more excited about joining the AAC, or the Group of Five Ivy League. But until next time,
The group, the G5 Ivy, baby.
until next time, everyone. Thank you again, Cuthbert, and peace, love, and soul.